Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Affan Haikal Octav Siswanto, and I'm from group EMAP 6. And today, I would like to do the presentation of Consort 2010 checklist of information to include when reporting a randomized trial. Okay, for the first topic is the title and abstract. We get here in this article for the item 1A or the point 1A, for the title is randomized controlled trial of the effect of regular paracetamol on influenza infection. This item 1A is the identification as a randomized trial in the title. Okay, for the next item is 1B. That is the structured summary of trial design, methods, results, and conclusions. So we get here, there is the methods, results, and conclusion in the abstract. Okay, we get here, the next item is item 2A. There is scientific background and explanation of rationale. I get here, there is seasonal and pandemic influenza infection is an important public health issue. So that means why I give a highlight or why I put this for into the item 2A. And the next we get here, the item 2B. There is specific objectives or hypothesis that in this article we hypothesized that regular administration of paracetamol during confirmed influenza infection is associated with prolonged viral shedding, worse symptoms, and prolonged illness duration. And the next item here is item 4A. That is eligibility criteria for participants. In this article mentioned here, eligible participants were aged 18 to 65 years and had symptoms of an influenza-like illness, and at least one of cough, sore throat, rhinorrhea, headache, myalgia, fatigue, or malaise for less than 48 hours. So the next item is item 3A. That is description of trial design, such as parallel, factorial, including allocation ratio. In the article, we got here participants were simply randomized one-on-one to receive 100 milligram paracetamol tablets or placebo tablets 4 times daily for 5 days. Double blinding was maintained by the use of identical paracetamol and placebo tablets, in addition to the study medication. All participants received a course of oseltamivir, 75 mg, one tablet twice daily with food for 5 days. Low-dose oral codeine was available as required for pain. And the next item here we got is item number 5. There is the interventions for each group with sufficient details to allow replication, including how and when they were actually administered. So, in the article, all participants were admitted to the CTU for 48 hours, during which they received directly observed randomized treatments and underwent standardized clinical assessments. Baseline data were collected. Following randomization, the following study assessments were performed. Prenasal fluid swabs were collected into universal transport medium, taken for influenza quantitative viral load reverse transcriptase polymerase chain reaction analysis at baseline 24 hours for day 1, 48 hours for day 2, and 120 hours for day 5. All baseline samples were tested for the presence of human ribonucleic acid to ensure that samples had obtained human tissue. These were positive in all instances. So the next item here we got is point 3b. Point 3b is important changes to methods after trial commencement, such as eligibility criteria with reasons. So the symptom scores were recorded daily from baseline to day 14 or until the total daily symptom score was minus than 1. Participants rated their health on a 100 mm visual analog scale between worst possible health and my health is normal from at baseline day 2 and day 5. And the next item here we got is the item 4b. That is the item 4b is setting and locations where the data were collected. So it's mentioned here, we conducted a randomized double-blind placebo-controlled parallel group trial in the clinical trials unit, Wellington Regional Hospital, Wellington, New Zealand, between July 2011 and September 2012. And the next item here we got is item 23. And then it also continue to the item 24. That is item 23 is registration number and name of trial registry. And the item 24 is where the full trial protocol can be accessed if available. So in the article here is mentioned this trial was prospectively registered with the Australian New Zealand Clinical Trials Registry. There is the number and the link we can access here. Okay, the next item we got here is item 13A. This item 13A is for each group, the numbers of participants who were randomly assigned received intended treatment and were analyzed for the primary outcome. So it mentioned here in the article, in the topic of results, a total of 80 participants positive on influenza rapid antigen testing were randomized, 14 each to placebo and paracetamol. None was lost to follow-up. One participant withdrew after 4 days due to a serious adverse event. Demographic and clinical characteristics of participants are shown in Table 1. The majority had taken antipyretics in 48 hours prior to randomization. Most patients were referred by their general practitioner following attendance with an influenza-like illness. There were 48 participants who were PCR influenza positive. then the 22 in the placebo group, and 24 in the paracetamol group. In 20 participants, a non-influenza respiratory virus only was identified by PCR, and in 14 participants, no virus was identified by PCR. So the next item here is item 7A. That item 7A is how sample size was determined. In the article, we got that total sample size of 80 with 40 in each of the two treatment arms had 80% power to detect this difference with a type one error rate of 5%. So the next item is item 12A. That is item 12A is statistical methods used to compare groups for primary and secondary outcomes. So the primary outcome variable was analyzed by students' t-test. The adjusted analysis was carried out by analysis of covariance. The next item is item 17A. That item 17A is for each primary and secondary outcome, results for each group and the estimated effect size and its precision. So it's mentioned here, the hazard ratio for time to resolution of illness in the placebo versus paracetamol groups was 0.89. Okay, the next item we get here is item 15. So item 15 is the baseline data. There is a table showing baseline demographic and clinical characteristic for each group. So we can see here there is the characteristic, so many characteristic here, and this is the table for all of the placebo paracetamol for each group. Okay, the next item we have here is item number 19. Item 19 is about harms. There is all important harms or unintended effects in each group. So, mentioned here, one participant in the placebo group suffered a serious adverse event and withdrew from the study on day 4. One subject in the placebo group suffered an exacerbation of asthma requiring oral prednisone. 4 participants received oral antibiotics, 3 in the placebo group, and asthma, and 1 in the paracetamol group. Oseltamivir was discontinued in 17 participants due to intolerance. The median codeine used in the first 48 hours was 30 mg in both placebo and paracetamol groups. So the next item we got here is item 18. That is results of any other analysis performed, including subgroup analysis and adjusted analysis, distinguishing pre-specified from exploratory. There is a directly observed adherence of 100% to the investigational medicines during the initial 48-hour inpatient stay. Two participants in the placebo group and 4 participants in the paracetamol group failed to return their bottles on day 5. Adherence for days 3 to 5 was 92.8% in the placebo group and 88% 0.4% in the paracetamol group. So the next item here is the item 22 for that is include to topic discussion. So item 22 is the interpretation. That is the interpretation consistent with results, balancing benefits and harms and considering other relevant evidence. We get here, there are a number of methodological issues to consider in the interpretation of these findings. Participants were randomized within 48 hours of symptom onset to ensure treatment was initiated early in the course of the illness. A small amount of paracetamol or NSAID used by most participants before randomization is unlikely to have had a clinically significant effect on the natural course of their illness. Okay, for the next item is item 25. It is the funding. So, sources of funding and other support, such as supply of drugs, role of funders. Uh, in this article, we can find that this study was funded by the Health Research Council of New Zealand, or HRC. The HRC had no role in the design and conduct of the study, the collection, management, analysis, and interpretation of data, and preparation, review, or approval of the manuscript, nor in the decision to submit the paper for publication. Okay, the next item is item 20. So item 20 is about the limitation, trial limitations, addressing sources of potential bias, imprecision, and if relevant, multiplicity of analysis. So it's mentioned here, these findings raise questions about the antipyretic efficacy of paracetamol in influenza and other respiratory infections. There are no previous studies of paracetamol in proven influenza infection in adults or children. We have found two studies of paracetamol in adults with upper respiratory tract infections. One study reported a non-significant 0.43 degrees Celsius reduction in temperature with regular paracetamol compared with placebo in presumed non-bacterial upper respiratory tract infections. The other study compared a single 1,000 milligram dose of paracetamol with placebo in acutely febrile adults with upper respiratory tract symptoms and reported a significant reduction in temperature of 1.08 Celsius degrees. So the next item we have here is item 21. The item 21 is generalizability, including external validity and applicability of the trial findings. So it mentioned here in this article, in summary, this study has found that regular administration of paracetamol had no effect on viral shedding, temperature, symptoms, or illness duration in patients with PCR-confirmed influenza infection or influenza-like illness that were also treated with oseltamivir. It is a priority to undertake further studies to ascertain the risk-benefit profile of the routine use of paracetamol alone in the treatment of presumed or PCR-confirmed influenza infection in otherwise healthy adults in the community. So, uh, maybe only that, only this point, or only these items that I can find in my article. And for the last item that I can, for the rest item that I can found in this article, I apologize to you and thank you for the attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.